Hello and welcome to another edition of Coffee with Graeme here on Amateur Sports TV. I'm your host, Graeme Forsyth, and going to be talking to a former goaltender today, a guy that works for Game On Magazine. He works with Tailor Goaltending. He played for the Stonewall Jets in the MMJHL. His name's Hunter Ploszay, and Hunter, he's now a new coach with the Charleswood Hawks in the MMJHL, and he's the assistant and goalie coach for that team. So we're going to bring my man Hunter in right now. And Hunter, how are you doing today on this fine Sunday evening? The show's going to be airing on Tuesday morning this week, but how are you doing, man?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me. And I don't have coffee. I have tea, though.
That's awesome. Hey, any beverage is good. Anything you can drink is always going to be nice for the system for sure. So we're going to get into everything from your career with the Jets. We're going to get into your time with Game On Magazine. We're going to talk about your time with Tailor Goaltending, and then we're going to move into what we're here for, is the new position you have with the Charleswood Hawks as the assistant and goaltending coach for that team. So just actually starting way back before you actually joined the Stonewall Jets, your time with Interlake, and you played at the provincial level for them. You also played at the city midget level, but just going back to that first year at the provincial level with Interlake, you know, you played 22 games, had an 8.94 save percentage, 3.98 goals against, and you got a lot of playing time that season. So just coming into a situation like that back then, how was that all going for you back then?
Well, it's a long time ago, but also thank you for bringing up those spectacular numbers, which are not spectacular at all. But coming from the Interlake, and you talk to many Interlake goalies, when you're getting 50, 60 shots a game, the numbers aren't always going to be great. But no, my experience with the Lightning, it was kind of, I played 2 years of city midget, and then I made the provincial team, and it was like a stepping stone. You always wanted to go up and play provincial. We looked up to those guys when we were coming up through the system from Bantam to city midget, and then I'm like, oh, I need to be on the provincial midget team.
Yeah.
Now it's called U18. But what I remember from those days is not as much the games, it's the experiences and the players and the friends you made, because a lot of those guys I'm still very good friends with and in touch with. So that's more important to me with hockey at that provincial level.
Yeah, and for sure, the friendships made at any level is great for sure. And just, you talk about the experience that you gained, and obviously gain valuable experience playing a season with 22 games played, and just talking about adjusting to the game speed of that provincial level. And you talked about how you talk to any goalie that plays for Interlake, how they're facing about anywhere from 60 shots a game to anything more than that. But just talking about how that really made you adjust to the game speed and adjust to how strong the shooters were in that league.
Well, it puts you out on the forefront, right? Unfortunately, you're going into every game expecting to be shell shocked, so it's not a surprise. There's only a few teams in the league when I was playing with Interlake that you're even hoping to make a game of it or possibly get a win. And I think there was only 2 or 3 teams that we were expecting that from. But definitely when you're moving up into those levels, the shooters and the systems and the setup that all these other teams have was very eye-opening, I guess you could say, especially if you're looking to move up to the junior level of hockey. But I remember on any given night, we could have Nolan Patrick shooting on us, Travis Sanheim shooting on us, you know, bona fide NHLers now.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's a learning experience, and for me, that's what got me going every game. It's like, I'm playing against this level of this caliber of player. That's what got me up for all those games. I didn't care if I let in 8 goals, but I'm gonna make them work for those 8 goals.
Yeah, it's awesome. And obviously playing guys like Travis Sanheim, playing guys like Nolan Patrick, knowing that those guys have made it so far in their NHL careers. I mean, Nolan Patrick being a second overall pick in the NHL draft a little while back now, just talking about playing guys like that, I'm sure that that was such a cool experience for you to take out of that time with Interlake.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the more interesting thing about that is, for a guy like me, you know, I'm a 5'7" goaltender. I lied and said 5'10" on all the programs. So that was kind of my little trick, and a little trick to all you goalies out there if you're on the short side of the spectrum. But yeah, you're playing against the top scale in Manitoba for your age. So and guys like me, maybe we don't move up to that level, obviously, but there's a ton of great hockey talent everywhere you go. So that was the takeaway from the provincial league for me.
Awesome. And just talking about how you lied about your height, that's a little sleazy trick there, Hunter, I gotta say, but it's pretty awesome that you did that at the same time. I think a lot of people
I don't do it on roller coasters because that might affect my life, but give a little white lie on the program, it doesn't hurt anyone.
Yeah. A little wide lie would never hurt anyone if it's a little lie like that. So just going into your career in the MMJHL with the Stonewall Jets and just looking at your resume there, cracking the roster as an 18-year-old at the time, and just the feeling of making a team like that, playing at a level at the junior level, like in the MMJHL, to be cracking the roster as an 18-year-old. I'm sure that you had a lot of excitement at a time. Maybe you're a bit, nervous to go up against those older shooters, but just the sense of pride that came with that, cracking the roster at such a young age.
Well, do you know what? I'm going to be completely honest in my answer, and I'll explain why. It was actually a disappointment at the time.
Really?
Playing for the Stonewall Jets, and that sounds like something terrible and crappy to say right now, and it turned out amazing. So I'll tell you why it was a disappointment. I wanted to play in the MJHL so bad. It was everything I worked for. I was listed with the Steinbach Pistons for I think 2 or 3 years, and had very good camps with them. Unfortunately, could never crack the final roster, but that in itself was such a big learning experience. They got a great coach out there, Paul Dick, who was a big influence on my hockey career, just showing how the professionalism and how you have to act on and off the ice to get to that level. It was very important to me. So. And then I moved on I had an opportunity with Swan Valley. A goalie had cut his hand somehow, injured his hand.
Wow.
So I did the 6-hour trip up to Swan Valley, and I thought I had a chance of cracking the roster, but as soon as that goalie's hand got healthy, I was sent back into Stonewall, and this is why I was saying it was disappointment. I thought, oh crap, I didn't reach my goal. Now I'm going to Stonewall. And the funniest thing about it is it was the best thing to ever happen to me in terms of my hockey career, because my years in Stonewall were not only the most successful years that I ever had as a goalie, but also the real true friendships and relationships that I made in hockey. So that's the silver lining of my hockey career. When something goes wrong, you got to play the cards that are dealt to you and make the best out of it. If you don't, you're not. How much do you really want it then? That's my opinion.
Yeah, and for sure, a great mindset to have moving in. I know that you obviously didn't get to where you wanted to be at that point in your career, but being able to play with the Stonewall Jets in the MMJHL, obviously you built such a great resume with that team. Of course, in your 3rd season, you win I mean, goaltender of the year, you win the playoff MVP in the championship season that you guys had. I mean, the list goes on and on. You just got better and better every season that you had. But just talking about coming in and that disappointment that you felt not being able to play for Swan Valley, not being able to play in the MJHL, just was there a chip on your shoulder coming into the season with the Stonewall Jets coming in?
Oh, yeah. It was a chip on the shoulder is probably saying it light. But I came back in and, you know, instantly all the guys are, Hunter's back, awesome. And that instantly made me feel very good, right? That kind of boosted my confidence after having such a low, to having people excited that you're here. That really pumped my tires up a bit. And yeah, you know what? I came in and I was just still on that high from junior camp. So I just came right in and started playing games in that 2014-2015 season and found out how good the league actually is. It's not MJHL, but every team has 2 very good lines, and then maybe their 3rd or 4th drops off a bit, but they're all very good players. And I quickly learned that. I always thought of it as maybe a lesser league, and even though it is technically in level, it's an amazing hockey league, and there's so many people that volunteer their time and help make that league run. So instantly I started finding out that, hey, what the hell is there to be sad about? I got a place where I could play, you know, 30 some games a year in a 45-game season, and we're having success. So what the hell is there to be? I'm not going to be a crybaby about it, right? You just kind of get on the ice and you play your game, and that's what I did.
And it seems like you fully embraced the whole experience. And you just talked about how there's those guys welcoming you in to the team, just talking about the talent and the friendships and just the culture that was created with the Stonewall Jets. Would you say that that's probably one of the most underrated aspects of hockey, is just the friendships being made? You talked about earlier how like that's the thing that you remember the most, but would you say that was probably your favorite part of your playing time with the Stonewall Jets in the MMJHL?
It was definitely part of it, and a big part of it. But I think you said a good word, culture. Culture is very important in hockey, and Stonewall and the Stonewall Jets, I think they're don't quote me on it, but I think their first year was 2000, maybe 99. Could be 2001. Who knows? I might just be talking out of whatever. But they didn't make it past the second round in 15, 16 years of playing in that league. So you don't have a culture. You have a losing culture, right? It's hard to get up for games and stuff like that when there's not that culture. And there's been a ton of great players that played on that team before we did, but I think we really set the culture of the Stonewall Jets. You can do it you can win out of the city. You know, we can be a dominant force in the league. It just took some time, and it took really hard work from our coaching staff and our board, and especially the players. You know, we had some great characters on that team, I would say. We had a great Brett Meyer was a wonderful captain for us the year we won. He would tell you himself he wasn't the most skilled player in the world, but he put his nose to the grindstone, right? Every single shift. We had a guy named Rowan Versable, who's a big physical presence, and Mackenzie Johnson, another guy, older guy who played with the Selkirk Steelers and came back home to play with Stonewall. And that really, they set that culture up for us for the years after we won. So we kind of created a winning culture there, I would say, and it's with those kind of special players and coaches and guys from the board. And it's a culture that I hope is still going on in Stonewall. I'm 3 years out now from playing in the MM, but I'm still connected with all those guys. So I know they're still carrying on those, the winning culture, I should say.
And that's great stuff, Hunter. We're going to go into our first commercial break here on this edition of Coffee with Graeme. We'll be right back with former goaltender of the Stonewall Jets. He's a writer for Game On magazine here in Manitoba. He also works for Tailor Goaltending. His name is Hunter Ploszay, and he's also the new assistant and goalie coach for the Charleswood Hawks coming into the 2020-21 season. We'll be right back, but first, we'll hear from our lovely supportive sponsors here sponsoring Coffee with Graeme. Back here on Amateur Sports TV for this edition of Coffee with Graeme with your host, Graeme Forsyth, joined by former Stonewall Jets goalie, now a writer for Game On Manitoba magazine. He works for Tailor Goaltending as well, and he's also joining the Charleswood Hawks staff this season as an assistant and a goalie coach for that squad this year. His name's Hunter Ploszay, and Hunter was just talking about his time so far, talking about his career with the Stonewall Jets, talking about how it was, the fun times, embracing the experience. Obviously wasn't something that he wanted at first, but then he realized that it was a league that had a lot of solid players, talking about how he embraced everything within it and talking about that winning culture as well. So just moving on to that first season once again with the Stonewall Jets, coming in as a rookie, you got a lot of experience in that season. Just the strengths in your rookie season coming in, Hunter, obviously, like, you had a losing record at 13-14-1, obviously not a winning record, but there was obviously some great stuff to build off of that rookie season. So just talking about coming into a league that you've never played in before, obviously you're playing guys a lot older than you, shooters that are highly skilled as well, talking about the strengths you had coming into that season.
I was young. I was a young guy. I didn't want to do anything other than play hockey, and I think that's kind of an important strength going into my first season. It's, because it's probably October by the time I get with Stonewall. And it's like, all right, I'm here now. I'm going to play. I'm going to try and steal the starting spot from anybody. And I'm with a bunch of older guys from Stonewall that, were years older than me in high school. And, my strength was fitting in with the group, working hard in practice. Those are kind of my strengths that carried me onto the ice. And then my strengths on the ice, I was probably 20 pounds lighter at that time, and a lot more flexible. So my flexibility and quickness, especially for a small guy, that's what small goalies need. So it's kind of funny with the Dallas Stars right now. They're calling Nadobin a small goalie. I think he's still almost 6 feet, but he's they're saying he's very flexible and quick for a small guy. I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah, it's awesome. And just talking about Nadobin, man, he's had a heck of a playoff run so far with the Dallas Stars, and putting them in contention to possibly making it to the Cup this season. And just a great story with the Dallas Stars there with all the experience that they have. But I digress. Just going back to the stuff with the Stonewall Jets, and of course this is Amateur Sports TV, so we got to stay on that topic. But just talking about how you're a flexible goalie and your quickness were probably some of your biggest strengths in that season on the ice. And just talking about making you think here, Hunter, but the most underrated aspect of your game coming in as an 18-year-old rookie.
My most underrated aspect coming in?
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's a thinker here.
I think it would have just been my my competitiveness. One thing that I don't find it as competitiveness because it's just something that I've always done. But as I've talked to few coaches that coached me years later, they go, "Damn, he never gave up on a puck even in practice. He got pissed off when he got scored on in practice." I think that was but knowing how to contain it in a game and get in that zone and stay in that zone, I think that was probably the thing about me that maybe people didn't talk about as much, but if you're around me every single day, and that's what my coaches have said, that competitiveness, so they haven't seen, not to pat myself on the back or anything like that, but they say, you know, most competitive goalie that I've ever seen. So, you know, that I take that and I wear that with like a badge of honor.
Awesome. And being able to be so competitive as you are is such a great thing to have in, you know, your skill set, and being able to, you know, not let, you know, if you let a bad goal in, not let it get to you. I think that's one of the most important things as a goaltender, is keeping your head high, because it's such a mental game with goaltenders. And I remember talking to Samuel DePoe. He was a goaltender for the College Belleville Barracudas in the Winnipeg Free Press Division in the Winnipeg High School League. And he said that coming into a senior season this year, that he focused on the mental game so much. And it's so apparent now that not only that you need that physical aspect of your game, but you need that mental aspect to also be at an all-time high in a lot of moments in games. So just talking about how you think the mental aspect of the game is so underrated, and it's something that goaltenders should focus on improving and trying to, you know, not let those goals that they've let in get them down.
Well, that's kind of the transition from that I'm able to teach my students now and other goalies that I'm working with. They say, you know, it's 80-20 mental to physical in hockey. You could be a physical specimen as a goaltender, but if you're not in the right mental headspace, or you're not mentally strong, you're not going to last, and you're not even going to last in games. I think the important thing to do with the mental game, at Tailor Goaltending, we have Zoom calls with goalie coach Mike Valley. He was an ex Dallas Stars goalie coach, and a few other professional teams in the States. And he does these Zoom calls with us and our students, and really gets deep into the mental psyche of us weirdo goalies. And it's the biggest part of the game. You know, you create a routine, you stick with that routine, you do all your stretches and eat right and drink right to be able to feed that mental part of your game. If you're not doing I was a guilty type of player. If I wasn't doing the things that I needed to do, I wouldn't be in the right headspace. That's just the type of goalie that I was. So I had to do all these things to get in the zone and stay in the zone. I was a fun guy in the dressing room. I was cracking the jokes. I was playing the music. I was joking around with the guys, but 10 minutes before warm-up, that's when that switch flips, right? That's when you dial in. You've done everything right that you needed to do for the day. Now you're ready to go warm up. And the thing is, with that kind of stuff, you can't let it kill you, though, because if you don't do something proper, you can't get superstitious about certain things like that. I think a lot of athletes in general are pretty superstitious creatures, right? So that's the fine line between being prepared and doing everything you got to do and being a little nutty about it. And that's why I think goalies get the bad end of the stick on that. But yes, it's the most important part of any athlete's game is to be mentally strong.
Yeah, and just going back to your personality, I know that I was in your class last year in creative communication of the course at Red River, and you were always the guy cracking the jokes, so you're bang on with that assessment of yourself there. But yeah,
Couldn't be.
Couldn't be you, hey?
Yeah.
But just talking about how when the things, when the buzzer, you know, struck and it was the start of that game, you were locked in and prepared, and just the laser focus that you had as a goaltender. Was it always kind of like that, or as you got older and you got more experience, did that kind of change a bit, your approach to the game?
Honestly, for some reason, I don't know when it started. I don't even remember playing hockey before. I don't remember my first city midget season. I remember my second.
Yeah.
And I remember parts of provincial. I really don't remember. Maybe it's because they're so long ago, but maybe it's because I came into my own the way that I am now when I play goal or teach goal. But I really only started, I think I came into it probably around second year city midget, because I won city midget goaltender of the year that year, which was incredible and unexpected. I wasn't expecting to win that award at all. And I remember that season, the thing that I started doing was, and this is maybe where that superstition / mental toughness came into it, but I would follow the puck everywhere it went on the ice for the whole game.
Yeah.
No matter where it went on the ice, I focused on it and watched with the crazy goalie eyes. And I muttered the words in my head, all you have to do is stop the puck. So every second I'm on the ice, I'm following the biscuit around and I'm saying, all you got to do is stop the puck. All you got to do is stop the puck, repeatedly in my head. And I think that's kind of when I started really dialing in as a goalie. I know Braden Holtby, what he does to reset, he throws his water up in the air and he looks at a drop and watches it fall, because you always see him. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, right.
He's resetting his mind. So like if he gave up a bad goal, or he's in between a whistle or something, he's flicking that up and he's watching the drop. That's what I would do. I would give my post a tap, look at the puck and say, all you got to do is stop the puck. And that was kind of my reset. And it got to the point where in junior, I wouldn't be able to sleep till 3 a.m. after the game. And I'd have such a wicked headache from constantly following this puck everywhere around the ice. So I guess that's why they call goalies crazy. You're purposely giving yourself migraines.
Yeah, and I've always seen Braden Holtby do that thing where he, sprays the water up and then it goes down and he's following it. And I didn't even know that was the reason he did it. Wow, it's you learn something new every day. And, coming from a goaltender like you, it's cool to learn stuff like that for sure. So just moving into your year 2 and year 3 with the Stonewall Jets, and just seasons to remember. I'm sure there's seasons that you'll never forget. I know you said that you really didn't remember much of your minor career before that city midget year, but I'm sure that these are years that you'll never forget. The championship season in 2015-16 that you guys had, obviously you improved on every single one of your stats, 12-7 as a goaltender that season, 9-6, a 916 save percentage as well. Just talking about the things that you worked on first off going into that second season, was it more about like getting more flexible quicker as a goaltender? Was it more about that mental game once again, or was it maybe getting a bit bigger, because you said that you were a pretty small goalie at 5'7", even though you did lie and say you're 5'10" at one point in your career?
Well, the only way I got bigger was having these step steel extreme blades that were put on my skates. It doesn't, and that's actually true. That's the only way I could taller. But no, in all seriousness, that was actually the first year that I kind of took more of a break. From when I was 14 to 18, I was in a goalie academy 5 days a week, all summer doing my training. In between my first and second junior years is actually when I started doing more goalie coaching, and that actually got me and less training. I was working out still, but it was less on ice training. Every time I was on the ice throughout the summer, I was teaching other goalies. So maybe psychologically, maybe that helped my game in a way, because you gotta step back every now and then and reflect on what's going on. And the best way to learn for yourself is teaching other people a lot of times, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that definitely does make sense, is sometimes people become better learners by learning other people's and their techniques and how they approach the game. And definitely for you to being able to take, you know, the year off to kind of not taking the year off, but like taking some time away from the rink to kind of focus on yourself and focusing on like working out a bit more and focusing on doing more goalie training. I think that definitely could help you in becoming a better goaltender for sure. And I think that it definitely showed in that championship run when you went 11-1 that season, en route to a championship title. And just talking about how, you know, the mental preparation was probably at an all-time high going into that playoff run, just talking about how your game hit another level of your performance on that ice.
Well, I'll give you the whole story, the exclusive right now.
Right.
Keeping out some parts, of course, and I'll explain why. We went into that season again. It was the fourth year for those guys that I had mentioned prior. So we had like the nucleus of the team. When you got very good veterans on the team, that's when, doesn't matter if you're in the MJ or you're in the MM or you're in the NHL, when that nucleus of veterans and role players comes together, something special happens. And that's what happened with our team that year. Our coach got fired from, I can't remember what month, maybe December, when he was the coach for our first year, and he got canned. And then we brought in another coach, and I think that kind of shook things up a bit and kind of started getting us on the right path. And this is the part that I won't tell, but he ended up getting canned that season too, and our assistants took over. It was a very interesting story. Maybe I could tell you off the record, but when our second head coach of the season got canned, Matt Figueroa and Brock Cooch took over, and I think we went like 15-3 the last like 18 games of the season. So we went into playoffs on a roll, just feeling good. And then when playoffs started, we were down. We ended up being down 3-1 in the series. You know, we had such a great end of the season, and then we're down 3-1 to St. Patel, who was a very good team at the time. Their veterans were all lining up also, kind of just like ours. They had a bunch of good four-year players. And, you know, we thought we were done. And my goalie partner, Stu Fleury, great guy. He started the series, and then I played the second game. He played the third game. So we were down 3-1 in the series, and then I was given the game 5. I was given game 5. We're down 3-1. You know, what are you gonna do when your back's against the wall, right?
Right.
And
yeah.
We ended up winning that series in double overtime, game 7 in Stonewall at the Veterans Memorial Sports Complex. And I remember that game and the guys always bring it up to me. They said, I made this save on a backdoor pass with a few seconds left in the third period. And I barely even remember the save because it was such anarchy, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But people always mention that to me that played and watched it. And then in double overtime, I just remember Mackenzie Johnson getting this feed right up the middle of the ice, and he's in on a breakaway. and it's the most magical, probably, hockey experience I've ever had. You're in overtime, double overtime, you're tired as hell, you're mentally drained at that point, and he just walked in, and he was a great shooter. He shot low glove side, probably about 12 inches off the ice, post, and I hear ting, but it's posting in.
Yeah.
So that, and you know, everybody went crazy. That was the magical time for us, and we never looked back because we won 11 games straight after that.
And just talking about, I think that the storyline that fans and people, everyone listening to this, and that I can take away from this, it was an adversity-filled year for you guys. Of course, losing a head coach and then losing another head coach is huge, and then the assistants take over, and then you guys are down in that series, and you end up coming back and, of course, winning that game in overtime to, you know, send you guys, you know, get things rolling, winning 11 straight. I think that was definitely the boost that you guys needed, and just you guys battling through that adversity, finally finding your legs as a team, finding that confidence really let you guys go on that roll. And for you, just winning playoff MVP. And first of all, before we get into that playoff MVP, being able to lift a championship trophy, I'm sure that it's something that a lot of players dream of at any level, to lift that championship trophy. But for you to do it, I'm sure that there's a huge sense of pride there for you.
It is, and that's that culture that I'm talking about in Stonewall. We weren't expected to do anything. Nobody expected anything from us. The city kids think we're country bumpkins. We think they're city slickers, you know?
Yeah.
And when your back's against the wall, we proved that anything is possible. In playoffs, it doesn't matter if you're the worst team or if you're the best team. It's which team clicks at which time. And that's actually a life experience that I learned that year in playoffs. It's you could do a lot of things as long as you're working hard. You may not get it, or you might, but as long as you're working hard, you never know. You never know what could happen. So that's one thing I learned, and kind of lifting that trophy capped it all off, followed by lifting lots of beers at the Rock Motor Inn in Stonewall after.
That's awesome. And of course, as I talked about before I even got into it, was you winning that playoff MVP and just the reaction and your feeling from that. I'm sure that it was the extra icing on the cake, if we'll put it that way.
It was. I felt I was very honored to win it. There was two other guys that any guy on our team could have got that award, but there was two other guys that really made an impact. That was, of course, our big guy, Chase Walkner, just an absolute unit, big body, fighter. He'll kick your ass and then take you out for beers after. He's that type of guy. And Eric Swanson, who took, I think, a number of years off of hockey. He was a high school hockey player and then a baseball player. Yeah. And he was back for his first season of hockey in years, and he was a great hockey player when he was younger, so we didn't know what we were going to expect from him. And turns out he put up, I think, 23 points in 17 playoff games or something. Crazy. Just an absolute roll, but that's what I'm talking about in playoffs. Everything after that game 7, maybe actually from being down 3-1, every single thing in every single game went our way. And it's just the strangest thing.
Sometimes it's just fate. I think that's the thing. It's that you guys were destined to make that run after, winning a huge game 7 when your backs were up against the wall. Everything was against you guys, and you're able to do that. And just, it seemed like you guys had a team of great leadership and great vets that really stepped through for you guys. And just moving on to that next season, you guys made it to the finals, losing to the Junior Raiders. I'm pretty sure that's their name, in the finals. But just before we get into that, talking about the Goalie of the Year award that you win, and you go from winning the championship in your second season, you know, you go on this crazy run as a goaltender and as a team, you end up winning playoff MVP, and then the next year you end up making the finals and winning this Goalie of the Year award. And just looking at your stats, Hunter, phenomenal stats all across the board, career highs at that point in your career, 22, 11, and 1 record, and .918 save percentage, a 2.83 goals against average. And just I want to get your thoughts on this, because you talked about how going into the championship season, you really didn't focus as much on your on-ice training as much as like your physique off the ice. But was there anything you did going into that season to prepare for it, or was it just things lining up again for you to win that award?
No, it was more of me taking over as a goalie coach. I think, again, it's working out, and it's training other goalies in the summer. I stopped really doing other than playing summer league, I wasn't going crazy on the specifics. I knew at that point that was the league I was going to play in. That was going to be the league where I finished my competitive hockey. It's not that I didn't work on myself anymore, but it was just, I know what I'm doing. I'm in good shape. I know what I have to do to play in that league. So I'm not gonna go crazy playing doing specific training all summer. I worked out, and I was on the ice 2-3 times a week playing summer league. So still kept me in very good shape. And again, the training, I'm on the ice 6 days a week. Maybe I'm playing 2-3 times my own, and then I'm on 3-4 times a week training goalies. So I've never really been off the ice for longer than maybe a month, probably in 6 years.
That's crazy. And what you're describing to me is, even though you're not focusing on the specifics of the game, getting better in those aspects, you're still on the ice, and little do you know, you're getting better at the game without even working on it, which is awesome. And just talking about how you talked about in City Midget, how you won a similar award and you weren't even expecting it. Were you expecting to win this award that year? Because you had a phenomenal year, but you're a guy that seems pretty humble, and you always seem surprised about things.
That's just my dumb face. No. I was expecting it, honestly, because they sent me a letter a couple weeks before the award ceremony, so that was nice. I think that's how they do award ceremonies. They send the letters. So I was happy about it. Again, people in the Stonewall Jets, they don't win anything other than their hardest working player before. That was kind of the awards that players on our team would get. And then when we became a contender every year, I think we started getting more respect, because a number of our players were on first and second team All-Star. I was honored to get the Goaltender of the Year award. So I think we were just being recognized more on the league. And of course, that's an award that you can't win on your own. That's your defense committing every night. I remember I had wonderful defensemen in Tanner Faulkner, Bradley Dawson, Max Smith. There's a ton that defensemen that I played with on the Stonewall Jets that helped me get that award also. Your team has to have your back to be a good goalie. No matter how good you are, how hard you work, you're not going to stop every puck. But if you could stop a lot of chances during a game, but the defensemen also take away a lot of those chances, and then you have to have the forward supporting the defenseman. It's 3 lines on the ice of defense, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, everybody has to come together, and that's a personal award, but it's really a team award, because everybody has to be in the same mindset. But I have a funny story about the award, and it's
Let's hear it.
I have to this day. So we're at the award ceremony. We are sitting with my group that came, team of guys. Probably about 7 or 8 of us came from the team, and all our parents are there. Of course, it's a big banquet at Canada Inns, Full Park. So, you know, the pops are flowing a bit at the table. We're having a good,
of course. Yeah.
Season's over. And we have to go up and do like a speech every time that a player goes and accepts an award. So my dad's sitting there, my mom and my grandma are sitting at another table. And so I went up, you know, not really thinking, maybe a little fuzzy in the head. And I just go up, oh, thank you. I'd like to thank my mom and grandma sitting right there. And then I took my award and left, not really realizing what I did. I didn't mention my dad in the speech, and he was just gutted about that, and I felt so bad. But to this day, I tell him, hey, you know, I went up, I was nervous. I'm sorry about that. So that kind of ruined the whole speech thing for me.
kind of made you think twice about giving speeches. I'm sure that you got a ride home with your dad, so there was probably some tension in the car, I'm assuming.
Yes, lots of tension. Still brings it up to this day.
Really? So he still feels about it. Still feels some way about it, man. But, you know, great award for you. And of course, you said that, you know, it's, even though it's a personal award, it's more of a team award. And I love that, because obviously you can be one of the best goalies in the world, but if you have no defense or no great support system in the D zone, you're, you know, only going to be as good as your skilled Kate get. And just talking about the skilled shooters in the league, you know, it's only a certain amount of time before your skill, you know, the amount of skill runs out. But just talking about how great your team was going into that season and how great they were around you for sure, and just your excellent play, you know, everything lined up. And of course you knew, you know, before the award ceremony even came to be that you were winning that award, because you did get that notice on paper for sure. And just talking, so moving into the finals appearance that you guys had, and just for not only to win a championship, but to get back there the next year. And even though you guys lost, it's probably a great feeling knowing that you guys were able to get back there once again. And, you know, even though you didn't win, I'm sure you felt a sense of pride being able to get back to that same place back-to-back times.
Yeah, and you know what? I have no hard feelings about losing at all, because we were just decimated at that point with, like, the guys worked their butts off. The guys were playing with so many injuries. You know, defensemen were playing Seth Jones Columbus numbers pretty much. So you can't be mad when you just get beat by a team that was better and healthier at that point in time. The year before, we went on a crazy magical run where everything went right for us. Then the next year we got to a point where we just couldn't play anymore. So I don't have any hard feelings about it. And of course, like you said, you're a contender. You're there every year no matter what, and we still put up a fight. I think it went to 6 still. So, you know, stuff happens.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously when things line up, it's great. But when, you know, as you said you guys were decimated, of course, playing Seth Jones numbers. I like that analogy right there. But obviously no love lost losing in the finals to a team that was healthier and better at the time, as you said, and just moving into that final season, making it to the semifinals. But, you know, losing, not being able to get back to the finals, I'm sure that, you know, in your final season would have been great to get back there for a third time. But would you say that last year was more of being a mentor for your other goaltender, Curtis Beck, who was in his second year as a goaltender, and I'm sure that he learned a lot from you and how you approach the game?
Well, I hope so. I'd like to believe so. I love Curtis a lot. Great kid. He really came into his own that year, actually. Now that you mention it, it takes a little bit for goalies. He was a high school goalie. Me, I came into AAA and, you know, that level of hockey, and coming to junior. He went from high school to, and 1 year Bantam Lightning, I think, but he came in being a high school goalie, right? So it takes a little more years, a couple more years to adjust to that. And he totally came into his own and had a wonderful season the year that his last year, unfortunately, the season that was ended by COVID, but he just became a very, really great goalie in that league. And he was fun to hang out with and kind of fun to mentor. I think the interesting thing with goalies, your friends most of the time you're friends, and you don't really look at it as I mentor you type of thing. It's a friendship. The coach tells you when a goalie's in net or when you're not in net. So I think the best mentorship is a natural mentorship where, you know, you don't look down on them. They might look up to you, but you're not looking down at them like, hey, I'm your mentor, you got to listen to me. You be friendly. You share secrets, tricks of the trade, as they say, and give advice. That's what we're here for. We're not NHL goalies fighting for a spot. You're here to help your team, and that's always been my mentality. So Curtis Beck, good goalie.
Awesome, man. If Curtis is listening to this, I'm sure that he also respects you and how you approach the game. And just moving on from the mentorship stuff, obviously losing in the semifinals that season, not being able to get back, obviously disappointing, but at the same time, I'm sure you were kind of at peace with it at the time because you've accomplished so much up to that point in your career, obviously winning a championship in your second year, winning finals MVP, winning goalie of the year, and also making it to the finals the season before. Really, it was like you were playing with house money at that point in your career, but just realizing that in your final game in those playoffs, realizing that was the last time you were, you know, going to wear a Stonewall Jets jersey. I'm sure that feeling was pretty surreal at the time, knowing that was your final time. Did it hit you right away at first, or did it take a bit of time for it to hit you and, you know, you realize that, hey, I'm never going to be able to wear this jersey again?
Do you know what? Again, that one, it wasn't a surprise. I think the Raiders, again, in 6, just this, I don't want to say maybe the skill level on that last year's team. We had a good core of veterans, but maybe the supporting cast wasn't there as much as it was in the years prior, which isn't taking anything away from people. I mean it more in a way where the supporting cast, things happen. Like in the year that we won, there's a guy that hadn't played hockey in 4 years and he ends up having the most points in playoffs. Just that kind of thing. That kind of supporting cast, it just wasn't there, and you can't expect it every single time. And the Raiders were a better team than us, a lot better of a team that year. And again, decimated with defensive injuries. I think we were playing our 8th and 9th defensemen at the time, guys that didn't even play regular season games really. So. And it was at the Seven Oaks Fourplex, which is right by my place, and where I do all my Tailor Goaltending coaching. So it's funny. It's pretty much like my home rink whenever I played there anyway. So it's funny also whenever I talk to Raiders guys, they just talk about when we beat them 4 straight in their playoff in the year we won. They always go, you 4 straight, those Stonewall Jets. And I'm like, why are you talking about us? You beat us 2 series in a row after that. So yeah, it wasn't as much sad as it just was, all right, it's over. We'll have to have a very good wind-up party. And I think the sad thing is it's not the games as much as the practices and going to the rink every day. That's the thing that us hockey players miss the most, I think. You battle on the ice with your guys, but it's about those fun times at the rink during practice. That's what I really missed. That's what kind of hit me.
Yeah, and just great to know that you were at peace with it. But for sure, it's always when you look back at your playing career, you're always going to remember those great times with the friends that you made at the time, and you're thinking, man, it'd be great to go back. But obviously, great to know you were at peace with it, knowing that, you were done with it for good. But it wasn't the end of your hockey career, and we're going to get into your career as a writer for Game On Magazine, your time with Tailor Goaltending as well, and your new job with the Charleswood Hawks in just a moment. But we'll be heading to our final commercial break here in the show. I know it's been a while since we took our first commercial break till now, kind of lost track of time, me and Hunter talking about hockey and all the other great things so far. But yeah, we'll be going to our final commercial break here in the show. We'll be hearing from our lovely sponsors who have decided to sponsor today's edition of Coffee with Graeme here on Amateur Sports TV with your host, Graeme Forsyth. Be back with Hunter Ploszay in just a moment. And Graeme Forsyth back here on Coffee with Graeme with Hunter Ploszay, former Stonewall Jet in the MMJHL, and talking about his playing career, talking about the great experiences he had with Stonewall, talking about the awards he won, and how he said, even though they were personal awards, they were more about the team. And I love the stuff that Hunter was giving us here on the show. And just moving in now to outside your playing career, talking about your time on Game On Magazine. And, Game On Magazine, a magazine about hockey, obviously. And for you to become a writer, stay involved with the game in another aspect, not only in your goalie coaching, I'm sure that you've had a blast doing all this work for Game On Magazine. But when did you start with Game On?
Oh, geez. I think it would have been even maybe while I was still playing MMJHL. It started just, first off, you got to give a big thanks and shout out to Scott Taylor, the editor and the whole brains and machine behind Game On Magazine. His tireless work and his amazing editing. I have to add that also, because he's the editor-in-chief, and everything I send in, he polishes it up and makes it all pretty looking. So I got to give a lot of credit to him and for giving me the opportunity. He's a great guy who, that magazine, from everyone I talk to, it does a lot for amateur sports and amateur Manitoban hockey players, male, female, doesn't matter. We're almost just as we're a lot of people think of MMJHL, provincial hockey, but now we're getting even way deeper into the female level right now, because those leagues are doing so well and they're getting so much more skill every single season. And so we're doing a ton, and that's what I've been doing a lot of female profiles with Game On Magazine. And that's an awesome part of hockey, right? Because usually a lot of the guys are getting all the focus and everything like that, but we're putting everybody out there. And Scott is a big advocate of that. It's hockey. It's the universal language of Manitoba and a lot of Canada. Everybody's included. So I think that's a special thing about Game On Magazine. It's not the hockey news where it's looking at NHL players. It's that same level of insight for the amateur players. So it's a very special thing. And yeah, Scott Taylor got me into it as I was finishing up my hockey career. And it's kind of interesting to go from a different aspect of the game. You're in it and you're playing it, versus now you're covering it, you're reporting it, you're interviewing players. You know all about it. It's nerve-wracking interviewing people. It's scary. You don't want to slip up and say the wrong thing. But you do an hour and a half interview. you review that and you write about it. And hockey is kind of interesting because you see nowadays in the NHL, and it's getting better. The NBA promotes their players very well and lets them have free reign on kind of what they do. But in the NHL, it's very get pucks deep kind of league is what guys do, right? It's hard to find those little gold nuggets out of what people are saying. So I find that's something that I aim to do in a lot of articles. Find something interesting, find that angle, and try and run with it.
Yeah, and you talked about the female side of the game here, especially in Manitoba, and we're actually doing a mini series right now. We're doing Championship Rewind, but now we're moving into season preview where we're previewing a team season, and we're actually covering the Winnipeg Avros and talking to Ashley Van Aglen, just the experiences she's had, the resume that she's built up as a coach, and just I also talked to Eugene Kaminsky, head coach of the Winnipeg Ice in the MFHL, that league over there, and just talking about how they can field 2 Winnipeg teams and have so much talent, and for them to be 1-2 in the league last year and make it to the finals, it's shown how big the female game is growing here in Manitoba and Winnipeg especially. And just talking about how you're talking about finding those gold nuggets within players, and you said it's a bit harder in hockey, but talking about how you started off and how you've been able to improve as a storyteller now, how much improvement have you made as a storyteller in that aspect of finding those little gold nuggets and finding those, not emotional moments, but those moments that don't get talked about as much?
Well, I think it's like with anything that you're doing in life, with once you start doing things more and more, when you're doing an interview, when you're starting off, you're nervous. You're not even listening to what they're saying pretty much because you're just hoping the record button on your iPhone is on. And this is how I was, at least. You're so nervous, you're kind of just zoned out waiting to ask your next question. And as you learned in first year J, when you hear something, that's the thing that you expand on, right? So the notebook kind of gets thrown away for a second, and maybe you create a whole new conversation or interview based off one thing that you didn't even have written down, right?
Right.
So I think that's something that I've improved on a bit, and I'm still trying to improve on. Also, unfortunately, with COVID, we don't know exactly when the next magazines are going to come out, or if there's going to be enough work for everybody to go around. I hope so, because I still want to do those profiles and continue doing the writing. So yeah, I think just the whole aspect of going out, whether you're taking pictures of the players, which I was doing, or doing a one-on-one interview face-to-face, or a phone interview, it's you got to throw away the notebook, but that only happens once you start doing it enough and you get comfortable enough. So that's something that I try to improve on in the interviewing game on aspect.
Yeah, for sure. And that's such a big thing. Is I know when I started off, I know I was in a broadcasting course before I even went to creative communications, and was always about following that script. But as we learned in J class, it was kind of about, like you said, throwing that notebook away and kind of creating a whole new story. And I think that's such a great message for aspiring journalists out there. I think it's something that I have taken away from this interview as well. So it's great insight from a guy that's not only played the game, but he's had experience in the field as well. But just going back to profiles, has there been a certain profile that you've been the most proud of writing, or a profile that you've had the most fun doing so far in your career as a writer for Game On?
Well, I think with finding those nuggets, I think I've done around 10 or so. So one of them that I found really interesting, I did one on a Eastman female player at the time, Lisa Vigier, and she had, I didn't know about this going in, but she started talking about being a hockey player with diabetes and who she looks up to, like a Max Domi, who also has diabetes, and how that people don't think that it can affect your game a lot, but really it's your levels going up and down when you exert yourself at a certain point. You know, it's hell for some people. You work so hard and you have insane headaches and sickness after you. So that was something that was a gold nugget that we talked a lot about in that interview, and kind of came out the forefront in that interview. So that was something that I was kind of proud of.
Yeah, that's great. And definitely something that you don't even think about, how, you know, having a condition like diabetes can affect someone's game so much, and you don't even realize it. And it's something that, as you talk about, finding those gold nuggets, that's such an awesome thing, Hunter. And I forgot to do this totally, but what's the website name exactly for Game On Magazine, so I can link the viewers to it?
I'm pretty sure it's just Game On Magazine.
Game On Magazine. So if you guys want to check out Hunter's work and all the other great writers for Game On Magazine, you can go to that website, gameonmagazine.ca. I'm assuming it's .ca, not .com. But yeah, gameonmagazine.ca. You can check out all the great work of all those great writers over there.
And you can find that many local rinks.
Yeah. Also, I've seen them in local rinks too. I've seen them at Southdale. I've seen them at Dakota. Yeah, great stuff from Game On Magazine.
And at Chapters.
And at Chapters. So just all over. Yeah, just all over the place. Hey. So moving into your work with Tailor Goaltending now, and you talked about how you guys started bringing in Zoom calls with the former coach of the Dallas Stars. I forget his name exactly, but just talking. Who is it, sorry?
Mike Valley.
Mike Valley. And I think that's such a cool thing, talking about the mental aspect with the players, talking about just learning from, you know, a goalie coach like that in Mike Valley, how cool that is that Tailor Goaltending was implementing that. But other than that type of stuff, the off-ice stuff like the Zoom calls, what type of like on-ice drills do you guys do? Do you focus more on the fundamentals of, you know, building the goaltender?
Well, I guess the name, it speaks for itself. It's tailor-made to your own personal style, right? And it's tailored to your game. That's kind of the brainchild of Brent Zelinowicz, my goalie coach mentor, and the guy that brought me into that. These guys that work in hockey, they're just tireless, crazy people that do anything for sports and hockey, and just wanting to teach people and get people better. It's amazing the work that a guy like Brent does to make sure he could do 10 sessions a week or more. That's a lot of goalies. That's a lot of players that you got to get for shooters. It's a lot of ice you got to buy, and ice ain't cheap nowadays. So to be able to run that and that whole thing, Brent is just amazing at that, and he taught me a lot. That's a coach that could go in and, you know, he's expecting 6 goalies, and if there's 12 on the ice, instantly he could create a whole new plan in his head. And it's just really amazing to watch. But what we do is, mainly in the summer, the 3 months from June to end of August that we do, we start off obviously feeling the puck, watching with your eyes, watching that puck come to the body. And then as the weeks progress, then we start getting more into the technical skating, behind the net, more VH for the goalie nerds out there, that kind of thing. So it's step-by-step training. You're not going to go out you're not going to go out your first day and start doing all these crazy edge work when you haven't been on the ice since the end of the season, right? It's like anything in life.
Right. So just building step by step, building your way up to the final product. That's awesome. And definitely for goalies that are looking to get better. Obviously, you don't have to go to Tailor Goaltending to, go into their camps, but it's definitely a great option and just some really cool stuff that they're doing there. And you get to work with this man too, Hunter Ploszay, which would be pretty awesome.
You don't have to, but it could work.
It could for sure. So we're running late on time here, but we're going to get into, a bit of the stuff with the Charleswood Hawks, and you're becoming a goalie and assistant coach with the club. And I talked to you before we started up in this final part of the interview during the commercial break, just talking about how just congrats, man, a great opportunity for you in your hockey career to get a chance to, show your strengths as a goalie coach as well as an assistant coach now too.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a big opportunity, and it's kind of the natural progression of my coaching career, which again, I didn't expect to be a coach or anything like that, but it's just something when you know hockey and you've done hockey your whole life, I guess that's the natural progression of it there. But yeah, Kyle Nixon, the head coach of Charleswood, he's a gym teacher at Stonewall Collegiate. So he was my gym teacher for 4 years in Stonewall. And I probably put him through hell for a few of those years. I was a little, wasn't always the best kid in school. So that's why I say that. But
you're a troublemaker.
Pardon?
You're a troublemaker, hey?
I've been known occasionally.
Been known. From the stories I've heard, I got that vibe. But you're a great guy. So
yeah, he said, "Hey, I know you're doing all this coaching and with Tailor Goaltending, we're making some changes with the team. So I'd like you to come up on board." And at that point, I didn't know whether I was going back to KAAB at the time. So initially, I didn't want to put too much on my plate. But then after my decision to not go back to KAAB this year, I called him up and he said, "We'd be happy to have you." It's really interesting. And not the season, but tryouts, I guess, training camp season. Because with this COVID, there's rules in place. We're at the Iceplex right now. We're not even at Eric Coy. And the goalie thing I have down pat. So like a relationship with goalie, doing drills, knowing how to help them, I know how to do that. So now the harder part is going to be doing the same thing now with players. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, and loads of excitement coming in, and how you're going to be able to grow is not only as a goalie coach, being able to coach at this high level, but being able to deal with players as well. And I'm sure that that's going to help you progress farther into your coaching year. And we were talking about with the Stonewall Jets how there was that winning culture there. And even though this Hawks team is coming off 2 straight 8th place finishes, before that they had 4 semifinal losses and a quarterfinal loss since 2014-15 until now. So they were a team that was always competitive with you guys when you played, with your playing time with Stonewall. But how excited are you not only to have that opportunity to grow as a coach, as you said before, but to, join a winning culture and learn from these coaches?
Well, if you looked at times, you might say they haven't had the most success in the world, but they're the most winning team in MMJHL history. And all you have to do is go to Eric Coy Arena there and check out the banners on the wall. They have a very rich history in winning, and that's the culture that coach or anybody that wants to help. That's definitely something that excites me. And hopefully once this stops, we're going to be able to do something special.
Awesome. And Hunter, thank you so much for joining me on today's edition of Coffee with Graeme. I'm just going to get these filters off here for a minute so I can zoom in here. But yeah, Hunter, thank you so much for taking the time to come on tonight. This will be airing on Tuesday morning, so be sure to check that out when it airs. So I'll be messaging you about that once again. But yeah, an hour and 18 minutes of talking hockey with a guy that, you know, has had so many experiences in winning, knows what it takes to win. You know, he's had experience as a writer, you know, telling stories in the hockey community, a guy that, you know, has won awards in his career as well, and he's won a championship as well. And Hunter was great for not only the viewers to see you on the show today, but for me personally to, you know, get in the mind of a goaltender like yourself that's had so much success. So I hope you have a wonderful time coaching with Charleswood. I hope that, you know, maybe if you're willing to come do this again, that we can talk sometime later in the year about hockey again.
For sure. And thanks a lot, Graeme. By the way, getting in the mind of a goalie is a scary thing, so I'm happy you're okay still. Thank you for having me, and yes, let's talk in the future.
Yeah, for sure, man. And hey, you know, I'm okay after getting in the mind of your own, so, you know, nothing wrong there at all. But Hunter, until next time, I'll talk to you, and stay safe, man, during this uncertain time, and good luck with the Hawks this upcoming season.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. Take care, bro.
You too.
And Hunter Ploszay, new assistant and goalie coach of the Charleswood Hawks, joining me on today's long edition. I guess you could say that, an hour and 20 minutes now coming up on that on my screen here. I'm sure it's going to be edited down with commercial breaks. But you guys don't need to know that. Just kidding. It's all fun and games here. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's edition of Coffee with Graeme. And I had a great time talking to my buddy Hunter Ploszay on today's show, a guy with an experience of winning not only awards, but a championship as well in his MMJHL career. He's had experience writing for Game On Magazine, you know, coaching for Tailor Goaltending as well, and now he has the opportunity to further his development and his career as a coach and getting to whatever he wants to do, those next steps. And special thanks to our sponsors for sponsoring today's show. Your support, as I always say, means the most to us. And special thanks to all our you know, regular viewers and our new viewers for tuning in to today's show. If you're a new viewer, I hope you guys enjoyed me battling on with my good buddy Hunter Ploszay here on today's edition of Coffee with Graeme. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and you can hear me on the network every Tuesday and Thursday morning regularly talking to athletes, coaches, and personalities from all around the amateur sports scene here in North America. So it's been a lot of fun, but it's getting late here. We are recording this on a Sunday evening. It's about 9:55 right now. I got class in the morning, so I gotta go. But until next time, guys, everyone watching, stay safe out there in these uncertain times. And remember, grab your cup of joe. Enjoy the show. I'll see you next time. I'm Graeme Forsyth, your host of Coffee with Graeme, signing off. And until next time, I'll see you again.